Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. So it is a lovely 74 degrees day in the Boston area with a very nice wind. I'm turning into a into a weather person. And what if that does mean, though, is that the windows are open because it is a lovely day out. So if you hear any road noise, or you might actually hear the birds out there. There's a cardinal that comes around. It's beautiful. But anyway, it's a happy Friday here in the Boston area. Today, I want to talk about what I'm going to call an anti-case study. So I've shared case studies with you before, which are client stories. So these are our clients, examples of our clients who have our PeopleStack clients who have just achieved amazing, amazing career outcomes. So these are people who have worked with us, who have invested in getting our career coaching help. And with these case studies, we basically tell their stories, and their stories of inspiration, their stories of grit, their stories of tenacity, and how they've been able to land awesome jobs and get 20 to 35, and in some cases 40+% raises, and really just do that and feel more joy with their lives, and really finally feel recognized and claim their dream careers. That's what we do here at the PeopleStack, is we help tech managers like yourself, which is why you're here. We help you to claim your dream career. We help you to achieve career transformation as a technical manager. And so while those stories, they're inspiring, they let you know that it's possible, they show you how to do it, it's also important to look at it from the other side of things sometimes, the anti-case study. The case of the person who is destroying their career, who is going to suffer and is never going to get more than a 10% raise, and is going to constantly feel like they're in a pressure cooker. Because honestly, sometimes some of us need a good kick in the butt. And that is the only thing that's going to get us off this treadmill of going nowhere. It's the only thing that is going to jolt us to actually take action and realize, oh, wow, I will not end up like that. I did not even realize I was on this treadmill. I absolutely need to get off of it, because we get stuck. We become conditioned with the day in and day out, and we think that that's normal, and that that's okay, and that's what's actually expected, and that nothing more is possible. And while the inspiring case studies show that more is possible, these anti-case studies are going to show you, if you stay where you are right now, if you just continue on the same path, the best that's going to happen is it's going to stay the same. But more likely than not, if you keep up with the same patterns that have gotten you stuck in your career up until this point, it's going to get worse. And it breaks my heart to tell you this, but like I said, sometimes people need a good kick in the butt. I definitely have needed it in times during my career as well. So it's hearing the, oh, wow, I don't want to end up like that stories. So this story I'm going to tell is a person who I'm going to call Martin the Martyr. Not his real name. This was a real person, though. This is somebody who reached out for help. He booked a career strategy session with us, and I spoke with him. This was several months ago. And I'm going to recount how the conversation went as a cautionary tale of do not end up like this. And while it may seem like a unique story, I mean, everybody's story is unique because everybody has it's a slightly different twists and turns and characters and emotions and plot lines involved in it. Everybody's story is unique. It's not unique in the sense that the story that I'm about to tell about Martin the Martyr, the patterns are similar. We see this a lot. The patterns are very similar, which is why I'm using this as an example. It's not like an outlier case study where it's like, oh, no, this only happened once. We see it again and again and again, and we don't want you to make the same mistakes. So Martin the Martyr reached out for help because he was in a job. This was his initial, this is what he said his challenge was. He was in a job for about 6 months, and he was just not getting recognized. He's working his tail off, working 12-hour days, but just like couldn't get into the swing of things. And if he felt like his boss hated him, his team was just not listening to him. And more than that, he just felt like he wasn't getting recognized at all for all of the hard work that he was putting in. So we started with that, and I talked with Martin for a total of about 2 hours or so. Not to spoil the ending, but I eventually did not offer Martin a spot in our program for a number of reasons, which will be revealed as I tell this story, that basically he was not ready to make this commitment to transform his career and to invest in himself and to really make a change. Like, that's the big thing. He was not committed to changing. He was not committed to taking extreme ownership. And he realized that by the end of the call. But as we got more into the story, that it was really what had happened was that he was in a job previous to this. And then he was on the job market for some time. And we talked a little bit about that, him being on the job market. And he talked a little bit about the woes of being on the job market. So we got a little bit into that, how it was kind of like not, it wasn't the best experience of being on the job market. He wasn't really interviewing very well, but he did actually end up landing a job. A buddy of his got it for him. But a little bit of the, I kind of settled with this job kind of came in because he was on the job market for like a year. Like at first it started, it was like 6 months, 9 months. Then he admitted I was on the job market for about a year. I was out of work for a year. And he did eventually land this job as a technical manager. I'm not going to say anything more specific than that because, again, I want to protect people's anonymity here. But it's a technical manager position. And his buddy basically got him in. So then I opened it up a little bit more. Okay, this is what's going on at work. This is what happened when you're in the job market. Okay, you kind of settled for this. All right, we definitely don't want to settle. And so we can, we could talk about how you would fix this. But then I asked the question that really opened up everything else, that really shined a light on what was actually going on for Martin here. I asked him why he was on the job market in the first place. Because everybody has different reasons for going on the job market. For some people, it's, I've had enough, right? I need to move on. This isn't a fit for me anymore. And by this point in the conversation, we had developed a trust with one another. At least he trusted me enough when I asked him, why'd you leave? Why did you go on the job market? Why did you go on the job market, Martin? Why'd you leave? I was fired. And so we talked about that. He was fired for basically performance reasons. His performance was not up to par. And when I asked him a little bit more about that, like what was going on there, what was happening, what did he think about his performance, then started the blaming. He blamed everyone but himself. He said how his boss was a jerk. His boss did not appreciate the hard work that he was putting in. He said that his colleagues were idiots. These are the words that he used. His colleagues were idiots. They were ageist, that they did not see the wisdom in his years, and that he was very, very mad, very, very angry. And this was over a year ago at this point that he had been fired, because he was on the job market for at least a year. That's what he said. So this was over a year ago, but at the time that I talked with him. Very mad, very angry. How could they do this to me? And what I noticed was that there was a similarity in the way that he was talking about his previous boss, his previous colleagues, and his current situation, where he had been working at this new job for about 6 months that he was settling for they're not appreciating the work he's putting in, he's not getting recognized, his boss is a jerk, etc., etc. That's what they call a pattern, right? 2 points don't necessarily make a trend, but it's the beginning of a pattern, especially when it's fired, I'm angry, I'm mad, how dare you do this to me, you're on the job market for a long, long time, and you get a job eventually, and it's only through a friend. And now the same thing is repeating itself all over again, just like Groundhog Day. And when I started to ask him about, like, I know that you've only been working there for like about 6 months or so, you may not have had any performance reviews yet. And they were like, yeah, my boss has already started talking about how I'm not, like I'm here, but I'm not. You know, I see that you're working 12-hour days, but, you know, I'm not really, you're not really adding value here. Like that was already starting to happen 6 months in. Same story, different place. And so, like I said, once I listened to his reactions and his failure to really take ownership here, and this is why I was on the call for about 2 hours, because I wanted to give him several chances. Like I want to give everybody the space to feel whatever it is they want to feel, especially something which can be as jarring and as shocking as losing a job, as getting fired, right? But especially a year out, what we're looking for are people who are able to look back on that experience and say, I learned something from it. Yes, like they fired me and that was their decision, but what did I do? What could I do differently in the future to prevent that, to make sure that I'm not falling into the same old patterns again? And so because I was seeing that and I gave him opportunities to take ownership, what about taking extreme ownership here, Martin? Like, do you know what that is? Do you agree that that's something that's important? Oh, yes, I absolutely agree that that's something that's important. But in this case, he basically said it was their fault. I couldn't have changed it. I can't do anything differently. And so it was at that point I knew that he wasn't going to be a fit for our program yet, because he was not ready to take extreme ownership here, and he was blaming everyone but himself. He was not ready to take a look in the mirror and say, what will I do differently next time? What am I committed to doing next time, or right now, in this job opportunity that I have right now, so the same thing doesn't happen again? And he wasn't there. And so I had basically decided at that point that he's not a fit right now for the program. But we serve every single person who calls us and who reaches out for help. And I acknowledge that. He is reaching out for help. And so I stayed on the call with him a little bit longer, just to open up some other things so that I can give him some resources. And really, my goal on every single one of those career strategy sessions is to have somebody have a breakthrough. Like a moment where it's, oh shit, I never looked at it that way before. Oh man, yeah, you just blew my mind a little bit there. And just having that outside perspective of, if I look at things differently, if I frame things differently, then I can finally move on. Not an easy thing to do. It doesn't happen on every call, especially, you know, when we just meet people and only know them for half an hour to an hour. But I do believe that Martin had at least a mini breakthrough when I spoke with him, because I asked him, okay, how do you feel about getting fired? Because clearly it was his getting fired, and all of his thoughts and feelings and just yuck around that, like just the negative stuff that he's been carrying with him. That's why he wasn't able to get a job. I know that for a fact, that he was showing up, because he was showing up to the interviews like, oh, I don't talk about getting fired. I didn't tell, when I was interviewing, I didn't tell people I got fired. So clearly he was carrying some baggage around getting fired for over a year. It was like, okay, how do you feel about getting fired? Okay, I felt angry. I felt unrecognized. I felt frustrated. How dare they? Like, this is how I felt. Like, they did this to me. And I asked him, how could you, if you were to feel differently, if you were to choose to have different feelings about getting fired, what would they be? Oh, I can't feel differently. What are you talking about? I can't change how I feel, Jen. I can't change. You can't change how you feel. And he was arguing for it. And he was like he almost knew he was wrong. He's like, no, we can't do that. No, that's crazy. Crazy talk. What are you talking about? Change how you feel. I was fired. And he was arguing for being angry. He was more committed to being angry and frustrated and blaming everybody else and suffering for that cause. This is why I call him Martin the Martyr. Than choosing to feel different about it. And so that was the moment I said, that's it. If he could just open up a little bit and realize that he can choose to have a different belief, a different feeling, tell a different story about getting fired, that's just going to open up so much for him. I knew he wasn't ready to do it completely on the call, but just planting that seed. So I planted the seed and I let him know, like, okay, yes, and I talked about the difference between reacting and responding. This is the way that I frame it. We cannot change the way that we react to things. These are our knee-jerk reactions, right? We're going to feel how we feel in the moment, and we do not want to deny ourselves those feelings at all, right? Especially when something like that happens. Like you feel fear, you feel anger, you feel frustration. Okay. That's not necessarily a choice. That's a knee-jerk reaction. That's reacting. But responding, we can choose. That's more long-term. We can choose how we feel, how we believe, how we act about something, especially a year later. And you are choosing a year later to still feel angry and frustrated and blaming about getting fired. What if you chose to feel differently? What if you choose to have a different belief around getting fired? Instead of telling yourself the story that they're all jerks and idiots. How different would that look? We absolutely have an influence over our emotional state. And this was a thing this was like, oh, really? Tell me more about that. Can you give me some change our emotional? What does that even mean, Jen? Like, and he was getting a little bit intellectual about it, but that was fine, right? He wasn't feeling it, right? But he was like, what do you mean by change your emotional state? How do I do this? This is really interesting. Can you give me some books? And so I did. I gave him some suggestions. One of them was, oh gosh, there's a great one. That's about I want to give you guys it. It's a book about about neuroplasticity, and I'll look it up later and I'll put it in the comments. It's a book about the neuroscience of stress, but it really gets into how basically having more control over our emotions and choosing different emotions changes stuff at a neuropsychological level, at the brain level. So I'll put it in the comments, the book. My brain isn't going there right now. So I gave him that book, and just basically the idea that, right now, if you wanted to feel happy, you could. If you could choose to feel happy right now, what would you do? I was like, all right, I would think about my wife. I would think about my kids. And I would think about what a lovely day it is. I'm like, you just did it right there, Martin. You just did it right there. And so that was the mini breakthrough that Martin had. Have not heard from him in several months, so I do not know what has happened since. But long story short, I was able, at least in that moment, to temporarily get Martin to step away from that martyr identity and move into basically that superhero, that tech leader superhero identity. Because that's what it's going to take to really get unstuck Instead of suffering for a cause, that cause being career mediocrity and blaming and frustration and anger. You could do that. You can choose to do that. And you can choose to, you know, be more committed to your excuses than to your dream. You could choose to do that, or you can choose to say, you know what? I am going to step into that superhero, superpower, leader identity. And I'm going to do this. I'm committed to my dream. And I'm going to take a hard look in the mirror. And I'm going to say, what can I do to take more extreme ownership? I'm going to stop all the blaming of everyone else, because ultimately, it's all me. It's all me. I'm the one here who has ultimate control over my career and over the things that happen in my life. Do we have 100% control? No, we don't. But do we have control over how we show up every day? Yes. Do we have control over what we believe? Yes, absolutely. Do we have control over how we feel? Can we alter our emotional state? Yes, absolutely. And all of those things are what it really means to take extreme ownership and to step into being an awesome, badass leader. That's what leaders do. They don't blame anyone else except themselves. And so here are my questions to you as you reflect on this story. Just really simply, what resonates with you about Martin's story? And number two, what can you learn from it? Really simple questions, but really powerful questions. Write them down. What resonates with me about Martin's story? And what can I learn from it? Take 5 minutes, 10 minutes today and write it down. And then commit to taking action on it. And if you're someone who absolutely does not want this to be you, you don't want to destroy your career, you want to achieve career transformation. That's why you're here, right? You want to earn more than 10% raises. You want to get 20%, 25% raises. And you don't want to feel like you're living in a pressure cooker. You want to have a Zen-like work-life balance. That's why you're here. That's why you're listening right now. So if you're ready to take extreme ownership, if you're ready to take a hard look in the mirror and say, what can I do to show up as the best leader I can possibly be every single day, and I'm going to get recognized for it, I'm going to reap the rewards for it, I'm going to do that with authenticity, I'm going to do that with integrity, I'm going to have fun doing it. And that's what we're here to help you do. So book a call with us, thepeoplestack.com/talk, and we'll map out a plan for you for escaping the land of career mediocrity and really walking the path toward that dream career, what that dream is for you. Everybody's dream is different. For some people, it's for promotion. For some people, it's landing a new job. For some people, it's staying exactly where they are right now, but just having more fun and getting more out of it, and potentially earning more money as well. Whatever that looks like for you, we'll map out a plan to get there. And if you want our expert help in terms of guiding you on this journey, we'll talk about what that would look like. But either way, like I said, we serve every single person who reaches out for help because we acknowledge that you're reaching out for help. Nobody goes it alone. Nobody upgrades their career and achieves career transformation on their own. So we're here to help. We're here to help you. We are here to help you with that. thepeoplestack.com/talk. Have a wonderful weekend, folks, and we'll talk again next Wednesday with more stories, some of them inspiring stories, some of them kick you in the butt stories, and just other thoughts and other topics to help you to claim that dream career. Have a great weekend, folks. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.